Alright family, let me set the scene for you right now because what we are watching unfold between Papoose and Remy Ma in the summer of 2026 is not a scandal about a swimming pool. It is not a scandal about a resort deck chair. And it is not even really a scandal about Claressa Shields, as much as her name is currently ricocheting off every timeline in America like a stray bullet nobody knows how to duck. What we are watching right now is the slow-motion demolition of a man who spent almost 20 years selling this culture the idea that he was the loyal one, the disciplined one, the husband, the ride or die, the last of a dying breed of hip-hop family men, and then chose, in one 30-second poolside clip, to hand the entire internet the receipt that vaporizes every ounce of that mythology in real time. Papoose is not being cancelled by his enemies. Papoose is being cancelled by his own footage. And Remy Ma, brilliantly, patiently, silently, is not even in the room. Remy Ma is at a birthday party, iced out, glowing, hugging babies, taking photos, moving through the world like a woman who already knew the universe was going to collect on her behalf and was just waiting on the mail to arrive. And before we go one step further, I need every single one of you watching this right now to understand something that everybody covering the story has gotten wrong from the jump. The right question here is not who left who. The right question is not why he was at that pool. The right question is why the divorce paperwork was never actually signed. And when we get to the New Jersey filing system breakdown later in this video, and I promise you on my life we are getting there, you are going to understand why every move Papoose has made for the last 3 years was never actually about love, was never actually about freedom, and was never actually about moving on. It was about something much, much colder than that. And Remy Ma has been 3 steps ahead of him the entire time. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me orient everybody on the full picture, because I know there are people watching this video right now who only caught the meme, only saw the screenshot bounce across their For You page, only heard Big Key's commentary in fragments, and they don't have the full context of who these people are, what this marriage actually represented, and why this particular moment is hitting the culture the way it is hitting. Papoose, born Shamil Mackey in Brooklyn, is one of those names that hip-hop heads have been arguing about for 2 decades straight. Papoose spent the entire 2000s being called one of the most technically gifted rappers to never get his true mainstream moment. Papoose had the bars. Papoose had the mixtapes. Papoose had the DJ K-Slay cosign, the Busta Rhymes cosign, the underground respect that would have made a lesser man's career. What Papoose did not have was a platinum single, a defining crossover moment, or a career that broke past the hardcore lyricist niche. And then Papoose married Remy Ma. And that changes the entire arithmetic of his story. Remy Ma, born Reminisce Kirkland Mackey, is not a supporting character in anybody's narrative. Remy Ma is one of the most decorated, most respected, most feared female MCs in the history of New York rap. Remy Ma came up under Big Pun. Remy Ma went bar for bar with the biggest names in the game and never lost her footing. Remy Ma survived a federal prison sentence, came home, and immediately re-established herself in an industry that writes women off for far less. Remy Ma is a Grammy-nominated, BET Award-winning, reality television anchoring, culturally significant living legend. And when Remy Ma married Papoose, Papoose went from being a niche mixtape lyricist to being the husband of a hip-hop icon overnight. That marriage gave Papoose his reality show. That marriage gave him his mainstream visibility. That marriage put him in rooms that his catalog alone was never going to walk him into. And now here we are, 3 years into a public separation, and Papoose is stretched out poolside with a 2-time Olympic gold medalist, while Remy Ma is still, on paper, in the state of New Jersey, legally, technically, financially, his wife. Nothing about that arrangement is normal. Nothing about that arrangement is casual. And the stakes here are not just personal, they are cultural, they are financial, and they are legal. Personally, Papoose is watching his entire brand implode in real time. Culturally, the hip-hop community is finally being forced to admit that Remy Ma was telling us the truth about this man for years, and we didn't listen. Financially, there is a legal marriage sitting inside a New Jersey filing system with unresolved assets, unresolved obligations, and unresolved consequences that could unravel his entire net worth. And reputationally, Papoose is one anonymous tip, one legal filing, one journalist with a FOIA request away from a Tuesday morning nobody in his camp is remotely prepared for. So the question I want you to sit with as we walk through this piece by piece is not is Papoose wrong? That question is already answered. The question is, how did Papoose think this was going to end? Let me start with the surface evidence, because before we get to the industry level, before we get to the legal breakdown, before we get to the deeper pattern of what is really happening here, we have to walk through what everybody with 2 eyes and a phone has already seen. And the first piece of surface evidence is the video itself. The clip that Claressa Shields uploaded. The clip that Big Keys amplified. The clip that has now been reposted, screenshotted, memed, dissected, and analyzed across every platform in America. In that clip, Papoose is not sitting. Papoose is not standing. Papoose is stretched out poolside in a pose that anybody who has ever spent more than 4 hours on rap Twitter immediately clocked as a callback to a specific verse Remy Ma dropped over a year ago. That pose is not accidental. That pose is not random. That pose is a receipt with a timestamp on it. And the fact that Claressa Shields chose to film him from that specific angle, in that specific pose, with that specific caption, tells you everything you need to know about what was really going on. Because Claressa Shields is not a random girl at a resort. Claressa Shields is a 2-time Olympic gold medalist. Claressa Shields is a world champion across multiple weight classes. Champions do not stumble into decisions. Champions plan their shots. And whether Claressa realized it fully or not, she just landed a shot that is going to reverberate through this culture for the next decade. The second piece of surface evidence is the caption. Because Claressa Shields did not just post the video, Claressa Shields called Papoose her hubby on a public feed, in front of millions of followers, in direct defiance of a marriage that has not been legally dissolved in the state of New Jersey. Calling somebody your hubby is not a joke. Calling somebody your hubby is not a slip of the thumb. Calling somebody your hubby is a claim. It is a flag planted in territory that, legally on paper, still belongs to another woman. And Claressa Shields either knew exactly what she was doing when she typed that word, or she is operating under a level of delusion that no boxing coach in this world is trained to correct. Either way, that caption is now a piece of digital evidence that lives forever. And no amount of story deleting is going to erase the screenshots that are already sitting in group chats across America. The third piece of surface evidence is what Remy Ma was doing that same exact weekend. Because while Papoose was stretched out poolside embarrassing himself on somebody else's phone, Remy Ma was at a birthday celebration surrounded by her real community. Remy Ma showed up glowing. Remy Ma showed up iced out. Remy Ma showed up hugging fans, hugging babies, taking pictures, radiating the exact kind of quiet dignity that makes an entire internet immediately choose sides. There was no clapback post. There was no subliminal Instagram story. There was no cryptic Twitter caption. There was just Remy Ma being celebrated in the exact moment her legal husband was being clocked by the internet. The contrast between those two feeds, Papoose horizontal at a resort, Remy Ma vertical at a party, is the single most damaging piece of visual storytelling in this entire situation. And it happened without Remy Ma lifting a finger. That is what winning without swinging looks like. That is what a woman who has already done her homework looks like. And anybody who has been following Remy Ma's career for the last 10 years knows that this is exactly how she operates when she is holding all the cards. The fourth piece of surface evidence is the silence. Because after that video went viral, after Big Keys posted the breakdown, after the internet started asking hard questions about New Jersey family law and unresolved marriages and the technical definition of what is or is not appropriate, Papoose said nothing. Papoose, the man who built an entire career on being the last one to leave the microphone, said nothing. Papoose, the man who has freestyled through every news cycle in the last 20 years, said nothing. Papoose, the man whose entire brand identity is the man with the bars for every occasion, went radio silent. And silence, family, in a situation like this one, is never neutral. Silence is confession. Silence is a man realizing that there is no verse he can spit that fixes what the footage already showed. Silence is Papoose recognizing that this is the first time in his career where he cannot rap his way out of the story. And the fact that his response to being clocked poolside was zero response tells you everything you need to know about how bad the internal situation really is. He is not strategizing a comeback. He is watching the building burn from the parking lot with his phone off. And oh, do I have more for you. Because if you thought the surface stuff was damaging, if you thought the pool video was the ceiling of this thing, you are not remotely ready for what the culture is quietly confirming behind the scenes. You are not ready for who has been weighing in without saying a word. You are not ready for the receipts stacking up in group chats and comment sections across this entire industry right now. The Papoose defenders in the comments are really not going to like this next part, but somebody has to say it clean on camera. And today on this channel, we are saying it. Stay locked in with me, because we are about to shift from what the internet saw to what the culture is confirming. And by the time we get to the New Jersey breakdown, you're going to understand that this situation is not just embarrassing, it is legally combustible. Let's talk about the cultural evidence, because this is where the story goes from a viral moment to a full-blown cultural reckoning. The first piece of cultural evidence is the resurfacing of Remy Ma's own bars. Because Remy Ma over a year ago, on wax, on a fully recorded verse, told this entire culture exactly what kind of man Papoose was behind closed doors. Remy Ma described a specific set of behaviors, a specific posture, a specific dynamic, and the internet at the time dismissed her as a bitter woman being petty. The culture laughed. The culture called her exaggerating. The culture said she was doing what a scorned woman does. And now here we are in July of 2026, and that same culture is watching Papoose stretched out poolside in a pose that lines up with Remy Ma's lyrics, so precisely that even his own diehard fans have gone silent. Remy Ma was not exaggerating. Remy Ma was auditing. Remy Ma was submitting evidence in advance and letting the timeline validate her later. And every commentator who mocked her for those bars owes her a public apology today. The second piece of cultural evidence is Big Keys, and I want to give Big Keys his flowers on this channel right now, because Big Keys did in a phone video what most mainstream hip-hop journalism will not do. Big Keys did not just point at the pool footage and laugh. Big Keys did forensic analysis from his own living room. Big Keys clocked the pose. Big Keys clocked the caption. Big Keys clocked the legal ambiguity. Big Keys asked the one question that every mainstream outlet tiptoed around, which is, does the state of New Jersey know about this? Big Keys turned a phone camera into a courtroom, and the reason his video went viral is not because he was being mean. It is because he was being accurate. And accuracy is the rarest currency on this internet in 2026. Big Keys is out here minting real coin, while corporate media outlets are still trying to figure out how to cover hip-hop without offending an advertiser. The third piece of cultural evidence is the comment section reaction across every single platform. Because normally in a situation like this, you get camps. You get the ride or die Papoose fans defending him. You get the Remy Ma fans attacking. You get the neutral crowd staying out of it. This time, the reaction has been shockingly, catastrophically unified. Papoose fans are not defending him. Papoose fans are quiet. Papoose fans are, in many cases, actively distancing themselves from the man. That level of consensus across a fan base that is normally combative is not normal. It is a flashing red warning light. When your own people go quiet, you are in a different kind of trouble than public backlash. You are in the kind of trouble that ends careers slowly, without a press release, without an announcement, without a farewell tour. You just look up one day, and the room is empty, and nobody remembers when it happened. That is where Papoose is heading right now, and his people know it, which is why they are already easing away from the association. The fourth piece of cultural evidence, and this is the one I need you to really sit with, is the way other women in hip-hop have been responding. Not with statements, not with posts, with likes, with shares, with subtle reposts of Remy Ma's old verses, with Instagram stories celebrating Remy Ma's birthday content, with quiet, coordinated, community-level acknowledgement that Remy Ma has been telling the truth this whole time and the culture is finally catching up. This is what solidarity looks like when it does not need to announce itself. This is what the sisterhood of hip-hop looks like when one of its most respected members is being publicly disrespected by the man she vouched for. And I already know some of you in the comment are getting ready to type, "Hey, these are grown adults. This is their private business. We should stay out of it." And I hear you. I understand the argument. But here is the counter-argument. And it is the one that closes the conversation. When you put your life on a public feed, you do not get to opt out of public commentary when the feed goes bad. That is the deal. That is the contract you signed the moment you cashed the reality television check. Papoose has been on reality television for over a decade. Claressa Shields has been a public figure since she was a teenager. They made this our business the moment they hit post. So spare me the "it is their business" defense. It does not hold water when the water is a resort pool being filmed for the entire internet. The fifth piece of cultural evidence, and this is the one that ties everything together, is the way the culture has quietly delivered its verdict without a single official statement being made. The memes, the reposts, the silence from Papoose's camp, the celebration of Remy Ma's birthday content, the coordinated female solidarity, the Big Keys viral moment, the resurfacing of the old verses, the sudden interest in New Jersey family law, all of it adds up to one conclusion. Papoose lost the court of public opinion before the actual court has even opened his file. And that leads us directly into the conversation nobody in mainstream media has the courage to have. Because the court of public opinion is not the only court that matters here. There is a real court, in a real state, with a real filing system. And that filing system is where this story is about to get very, very uncomfortable for a man who thought he had all the time in the world. Now let me shift gears completely, because everything we have discussed up to this point has been about what happened on camera and what the culture is quietly saying about it. But underneath the memes, underneath the jokes, underneath the big keys commentary, there's a legal, financial, and structural reality that nobody is discussing with the seriousness it demands. And this is where this channel goes deeper than every other commentary out there. Because the real story is not that Papoose was embarrassed at a pool. The real story is what happens when a legally married man performs the role of a public partner with another woman, while his actual marriage sits unresolved in a state filing system. And there are 3 separate systemic layers to this that I need to walk you through carefully, because each one carries its own consequences. And together they explain exactly why Papoose has been silent since the video dropped. The first systemic layer is the legal one, and this is where things get uncomfortable fast. In the state of New Jersey, and in essentially every state in this country, you cannot be legally married to 2 people at the same time. That is bigamy. Bigamy is not a punchline. Bigamy is not a technicality. Bigamy is a criminal charge. Now I want to be crystal clear with everybody watching this. Nobody is alleging that Papoose has walked down an aisle with Claressa Shields, and I am not making that accusation. But the public performance of marriage is its own legal minefield. And this is where the family law attorneys start paying attention. Calling somebody your hubby on a public feed while you are legally married to someone else, appearing as a couple in public settings, being introduced as a partner in professional environments, being filmed poolside while captioned as somebody's hubby. That entire pattern of public performance, while your actual legal marriage is still unresolved in a state filing system, is what any competent family law attorney will tell you creates significant evidentiary risk in a divorce proceeding. It creates risk around asset division. It creates risk around alleged infidelity claims. It creates risk around any settlement negotiation Papoose might be trying to structure quietly in the background. Every video Claressa Shields posts, every public appearance the 2 of them make, every performance of partnership in front of a camera becomes potential exhibit material. And Remy Ma's legal team, and let me tell you right now, Remy Ma absolutely has a legal team, is not sleeping on any of this. Remy Ma's legal team is documenting. Remy Ma's legal team is archiving. Remy Ma's legal team is building a file that is going to make for very, very interesting reading when this eventually hits a courtroom. The second systemic layer is the financial one, and this is where the story really opens up wide, because when people talk about the Papoose and Remy Ma marriage, they usually talk about it in emotional terms. But a marriage of that length in the entertainment industry between 2 working artists is not just a relationship, it is a financial partnership. There are joint assets. There are jointly acquired properties. There are joint business interests. There are royalty streams, publishing catalogs, likeness rights, brand deal residuals, reality show revenue splits, and every single one of those has to be untangled during a legal divorce. Which means every single day Papoose delays actually signing the paperwork, every day he lets that legal marriage sit in limbo, is a day where the financial complexity of the eventual settlement compounds against him, not for him. And I have been saying this on this channel for a long time. When a divorce is being stalled by one party, 90% of the time it is being stalled because that party believes the stall benefits them financially. That is the entire strategy. Run out the clock. Let the other person get exhausted. Hope for a default settlement that lands in your favor. But here is the problem with that strategy. And this is why Papoose is currently unraveling in real time. It only works if the other person is desperate for the marriage to end. And Remy Ma is not desperate. Remy Ma is not chasing. Remy Ma is not begging for a signature. Remy Ma is glowing at a birthday party, while Papoose is exposing himself, literally and figuratively, on somebody else's Instagram story. Remy Ma has all the time in the world. Papoose is the one running out of runway, and every poolside video makes that runway shorter. The third systemic layer is the reputational one, and this is the layer that is going to slowly sink his entire career in cinematic slow motion. Because in the hip-hop industry, there is a very specific kind of currency that Papoose has always traded on. And that currency is the loyal husband, the family man, the guy who stood by his wife through prison, through public battles, through everything. That was his brand. That was the identity that got him crossover appeal beyond his mixed tape lyricism. That was what booked him on morning shows, on reality television, on podcast circuits, where his rap catalog alone would never have gotten him a chair at the table. And now, in one poolside video, that entire brand identity has been completely vaporized. There is no going back from what that video showed the culture. There is no press release that undoes it. There is no interview that reframes it. There is no comeback narrative that recovers it. Papoose spent almost 20 years building a reputation as the loyal one, and he demolished it in 30 seconds. And the industry, the actual industry, the bookers, the showrunners, the podcast producers, the label executives, the brand partnership managers, they are all watching this. They are recalculating. They are quietly deciding whether the Papoose brand is still safe to associate with, whether the endorsement risk is worth the ticket sales, whether the reality show energy still lands with a family audience that just watched him get clocked at a resort. And that recalculation happens without any announcement, without any statement, without any confirmation. It just quietly happens in the background. And one day Papoose is going to look up and realize that the calls have stopped coming, and he is not going to be able to point to the exact moment it changed. But we can point to it. It was the moment he stretched out poolside and let Claressa Shields press the record button. And here is where these three systemic layers collapse together into one devastating truth. The legal, financial, and reputational consequences of the last 3 years of Papoose's decisions are not going to hit him one at a time. They are going to hit him all at once. And when they hit, the man is not going to have the infrastructure to absorb the impact. Because the infrastructure that would have absorbed it, the marriage, the partnership, the co-signed brand identity, is the exact infrastructure he chose to blow up. Papoose walked away from the only structure that was protecting him, and he walked directly into a situation where every mistake compounds. That is not strategy. That is not a plan. That is a man who was never actually thinking 3 moves ahead, and is now about to discover that the game he thought he was winning was being played on somebody else's board the entire time. Now let me deliver what I think is the single most important truth of this entire video. And I need you to be completely locked in for this, because everything we have discussed up to this point has been building directly toward this specific reveal. The truth, family, is this. Papoose did not lose Remy Ma because he found Claressa Shields. Papoose lost Remy Ma years ago, and everything since then has been performance. The pool video is not the crime. The pool video is the confession. Because a man who was actually finished with a marriage would have signed the papers, closed the chapter, and moved on with dignity a long time ago. A man who was actually finished would not need to still be legally attached 3 years later. A man who was actually finished would not be running out a settlement clock. He could have concluded any time he wanted. Papoose has kept himself legally attached to Remy Ma because that legal attachment has value to him. It has financial value. It has reputational value. It has strategic value in ways this culture has not fully digested yet. And here is the allegation that the internet has been dancing around for months, but nobody has said cleanly on camera. Papoose has allegedly been leveraging the ambiguity of this marriage to protect assets, to shape the eventual settlement, and to keep public sympathy tilted slightly in his direction. That is what the pattern suggests. That is what the timing suggests. That is what the silence suggests. And Remy Ma, brilliantly, patiently, strategically, has been letting that entire performance play out in slow motion because she knew that eventually Papoose was going to do something stupid enough on camera to collapse the whole thing on his own. And that is exactly what happened. Papoose collapsed his own strategy poolside. Papoose handed Remy Ma's legal team the exact piece of evidence they have probably been waiting 3 years for. Papoose did not just embarrass himself in front of a hip-hop audience. Papoose materially damaged his own negotiating position in a legal proceeding he has been trying to control the terms of. That is the actual story. That is what the pool video really represents. It is not a moment of freedom for Papoose. It is the moment his own hands filed the paperwork he refused to file for 3 years. And when this eventually reaches a courtroom, and I promise you it will reach a courtroom, that footage is going to be Exhibit A in a proceeding that Papoose walked himself into with his legs open and his eyes closed. Remy Ma did not have to lift a finger. She just had to wait. And she waited with more grace, more patience, and more strategic discipline than anybody in this culture recognized until right now. That is the truth bomb. That is the reveal. Papoose has been playing checkers on a chessboard Remy Ma set up years ago, and the game just ended in front of the entire internet. And this brings us to Remy Ma, because I want to close this section by giving Remy Ma her flowers the way this culture has repeatedly failed to give them to her. Remy Ma is one of the greatest female MCs to ever hold a microphone in the state of New York, and it is not a debate. Remy Ma survived a federal prison sentence and came home to re-establish herself in an industry that writes women off for far less than what she went through. Remy Ma raised children through incarceration, through re-entry, through reality television chaos, through Papoose's own public embarrassments. Remy Ma stood by Papoose through the prison years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose through the industry lean years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose through the reality show turbulence. Remy Ma gave Papoose a public marriage, a public family, a public brand, a public platform, and a career trajectory he never would have accessed on his own. And Papoose repaid Remy Ma by stalling a divorce, moving on in public with a boxing champion, and refusing to legally close a chapter he emotionally left years ago. And Remy Ma's response to all of that has been to keep glowing, to keep working, to keep showing up, to let the receipts arrive on their own schedule. This is Remy Ma's Renaissance era. Not the pain era. Not the lemonade era. The era where she stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped clarifying, and started winning quietly. And the universe is delivering right on time. Every day Papoose spends poolside is a day Remy Ma spends compounding. Every video Claressa Shields posts is a video Remy Ma's legal team archives. Every moment Papoose thinks he is escaping is a moment he is actually sinking deeper into a hole he dug himself. This is what quiet winning looks like. This is what strategic dignity looks like. This is what happens when a woman with real range decides that the best possible response is no response at all, because she already knows the receipts are coming, and she already knows the receipts always come. One person built a career on freestyles and married up. The other survived federal prison, rebuilt her name from scratch, and outlasted every single scandal that ever touched her. That is the difference between Papoose and Remy Ma. That has always been the difference. And now, finally, in the summer of 2026, the culture is seeing it clearly. But make no mistake, family, this story is not over. This is only the beginning. Because there are at least 2 developments coming that I need every single one of you to be watching for closely. The first is the legal filing. That paperwork is coming. It is not a matter of if. It is a matter of when. And when that filing hits, when the specific dates and specific allegations and specific asset lists become public record, the pool video is going to look like a warm-up act compared to what gets entered into the court record. The second development to watch for is Remy Ma's next verse. Because Remy Ma is a rapper. Remy Ma is a lyricist. Remy Ma is a woman who put Papoose's business on wax over a year ago and got vindicated by his own poolside footage. Do you really think she does not have more? Do you really think she is not sitting on another verse right this very second, waiting for the exact right moment to drop it? I have a very strong feeling, and this is informed speculation, that Remy Ma has at least one more song in the chamber, and when it drops it is going to detonate this entire situation all over again. So if you want to be around when that verse lands, if you want to be in the room when the next chapter breaks, if you want to be first to hear the paperwork analysis when the filing goes public, you already know exactly what to do. Hit subscribe. Turn on the notifications. Because when the next verse drops, when the paperwork hits, when Claressa Shields makes her next inevitable misstep, this channel is going to be first with the real analysis, first with the receipts, first with the truth nobody else has the guts to say on camera. And on the next one, family, we are getting into something that I do not think anybody is remotely ready for, because there is a name that keeps quietly appearing in the background of the Papoose situation that ties directly to a much bigger conversation happening in New York hip-hop right now. And when I tell you who it is, and what the connection actually reveals about the last 5 years of this culture, you are going to understand why the pool video was never really the main story at all. It was the door. And on the next video, we are walking through it together. Stay glowing. Stay winning. Stay honest with your paperwork. I will talk to y'all real soon.